Wool merchant Sean Ryan runs his business at Drury in South Auckland. He's involved in both Stephen Fuchs's council and the Colin Harvey-led Wool Unity Group. He says the wool industry is a complex creature, so does he find there's a lot of noise as different philosophies compete from different sides as wool industry heavyweights debate the future?
We do. When that group first kicked off, there was a bit of patching of old wounds that went on. We've sort of moved into covering a few harder issues, and there's a few more differences of opinion have developed in that process. And
so who's saying what? Who's on what side?
Well, you've got those that have traditionally been members of the council, the National Council of Wool Interest, and that includes your merchants, your Brokers Association, which is those ex-WPI, WPC, whatever you want to call them, the test houses, the exporters, the scourers, and manufacturers such as Cavalier.
And who is on the other side of the divide then?
Well, you've got your WPI camp, and you've got they probably share similar philosophy with the traditional farmer good bodies such as Meat and Wool.
The establishment of a high-profile marketing campaign for strong wool has received a huge boost with the Wool Campaign, backed by Prince Charles as patron. Already, interest from architects and designers in wool has soared because of the Prince's involvement and New Zealand's right in there.
We established that the use of wool worldwide, or in 27 countries, was declining in every aspect, from apparel through to bedding to blankets to socks to insulation, and every age group was going to be using less wool. So we formed a group and we established a wool strategy through IWTO, a lobby group. A number of projects have been conducted, including a very successful IWTO Architects project that we carried out earlier this year. But coinciding with that, Prince Charles initiated a review in the UK, principally as a wool grower, to establish why his wool prices were so low and why the demand for wool was declining. As a consequence, the UK industry encouraged the Prince to adopt a project using the Commonwealth as the drivers of it. The key Commonwealth countries who form this are Australia, UK and New Zealand.
Stephen Fuchs admits the wool industry is confusing, but restructuring is happening as the industry is simplified. For instance, from 23 wool scourers in the 70s, we now have 4. Things are on the improve.
It's interesting that in the last year or two, with the depression in wool prices, the demand being less than supply, the prices being at a historically low level, I think that's forced the industry to work much more closely together. And that's, in fact, that is actually happening. There's a little bit of interest in people keeping fragmentation going, but at the end of the day, it's an industry that's working more closely together. We're getting more demand, the prices are rising, we've got a responsibility to reposition wool into a new level so we maintain that price. So it's not all bad.
And Sean ended his interview on an optimistic note too.
Now that the commercial side of the industry has taken on the role of industry good investment, I feel that for sure we're getting we're getting excellent bang for our buck in terms of industry good investment. I think that there's clear visible signs that the medium term looks positive if we can ensure that we get the resource in the right places and keep this promotional activity going.
Welcome back. My next guest is Ian Abercrombie, who heads up Wool Partners International. His company is hoping to sign up farmers to a new cooperative, which in theory allows them to get premium prices when they sell direct to the Wool Partners Cooperative. Well, Ian, welcome back to the Sector Report program. Nice to see you again. Now, obviously, wool is still a contentious and interesting subject. We've heard from Colin Harvey in this program today, talking about the Wool Unity Group and its plans to reform the wool industry. Are you taking part in that?
Yes, we are. Under Wool Partners, we're one of the members of that group.
Right. So what sort of contribution are you making? What areas are you looking at?
Well, currently we're as a group trying to define the strategy for that group. It's only been established for a number of months,
yes.
And there's about 16 or so industry members in that group. So as you can imagine, it's things don't move quickly.
No.
So really, I think we're trying to define a strategy for the group and objectives, which we're in the process of doing at the moment.
So there are quite a few areas of contention, let's put it that way, and what's turning into a bit more of a fragmented industry perhaps than it was, when you've got the traditional auction single seller kind of mentality happening on one hand, then you've got a free market, it seems to be, with value chains like yours, with carpet supplying carpet manufacturers. Is that where the tension lies between the traditionalists and the more marketing oriented, brand oriented guys like yourselves?
I think it always has been a fragmented industry, and that was one of the reasons Wool Partners International was set up, was to try and form some consolidation and get some direction for the industry by putting together a fully integrated value chain. But ultimately, I think the objective is really to create some sustainability, long-term sustainability in the sheep industry, particularly the wool industry, and I think that is the underlying objective of the group. Ultimately, because it's in everyone's best interests. And I mean, having just interviewed Colin Harvey, Colin made the point that there is a tendency these days for a bit of farmer apathy towards wool, actually, that it's just a byproduct of other processes that are more important, like producing meat. Do you come up against that? Do you find you've got to push to get some enthusiasm in there? Oh, certainly. Up until recently, I mean, the wool prices, as you know, have gone up dramatically over the last 6 to 8 weeks. But prior to that, they were
off a very low base.
Off a very low base, and they have been during the global recession, at their lowest point. So growers quite naturally are frustrated, and many have given up on wool and are focusing on the meat side in terms of genetics and changing breeds, which is ultimately going to have an impact on the wool industry. So clearly we don't want that to get to the point of no return, so we need to get better returns for wool.
Now, the proposed co-op, which Wool Partners International will change into, I guess, from WPI to WPC, C for co-op. Now, you've had a series of road shows for farmers around the country to entice them into joining up. How's that gone?
Well, we've been very encouraged, John. I mean, the attendances have been excellent, to be fair. We think we've done now in the region 100, 102 road shows. So we believe we will have spoken between 4,000 to 5,000 growers by the end, when we finish this week, by the end of that time, which, from feedback I get from people who have done this before, it's a very, very good turnout of growers. So we certainly have engaged those growers still interested in wool, who are still, focusing on their wool. They're desperate to get better returns, and they're desperate for the long-term sustainability of the industry. So I think, if nothing else, we've motivated them to come along, hear what we've got to say, so they can make a balanced decision.
You do seem to have a pretty well-oiled publicity machine, both your company and your competitors, actually, Elders. I've got something from them sitting on my desk when I left last night. I always seem to be getting handouts telling the world about your latest deal. But realistically, how much of the national clip have you actually sold to carpet manufacturers overseas? I'm told it's pretty small.
One of the reasons why we have a well-oiled PR machine is because there's so much misinformation in the market.
What sort of misinformation?
Well, it's just information about what we may be doing, which is just completely wrong. Most of the time, just so
give us an example.
Oh well, I heard the other day that one of the growers had been told that under this new cooperative structure, Teresa Gatting was going to be earning $3 million.
Right,
which is just completely ridiculous. I mean, page 10 of the prospectus lays out the
actual remuneration
for directors. A lot of stuff. Or they joined the Wool Co-op yesterday. yesterday I spoke to a farmer who rang me. He said he was told that if he joined the cooperative and the cooperative went into receivership, he'd lose his farm. Yeah. So, we have to communicate to the growers frequently, often to correct that information and to give them the real story. And of course we have been working very actively in the market to try and create demand for strong wool, and we've been very successful in recent weeks actually, putting together contracts with manufacturers and retailers overseas which will return premiums to the growers within the cooperative. So that's big news, hasn't been done before, and obviously we need to communicate that to growers.
But in what terms? In terms of the proportion of the clip that might be used for this latest effort?
Sure. Well, if we're looking at talking about, the strong wool clip in New Zealand, we are talking about a small percentage of it. But it's a start.
It's a start.
And we've been working on this now, I guess, for just over 12 months, really actively since January of this year. It's taken 9 months for us to get a number of these contracts across the line. And we announced one with the Headlam Group, which is the largest distributor of carpets in Europe about 5 weeks ago. Initially, the initial contract is for 600 tonnes of wool. We're working on a couple of other brands within their portfolio. If we're successful with those, it's about 2 million or 2 million kilos of wool. So 2,000 tonnes. So it's a small start, but we have just made announcements with manufacturers in the States and a couple more buying groups and manufacturers in the UK this week, which will add to that. So what we're saying is the model works. We have our branding strategy around our integrity brand Leneve is obviously resonating with the international market. We've got a great story to tell. We need to do more of this, because that's what's going to create demand and grow the value for New Zealand wool. And
I guess standing back from where I sit and looking at it with even-handedly, Elders, your competitors, seem to be continually announcing breakthroughs. Admittedly, they use a slightly different system, but it's getting the New Zealand brand out there, I guess. That's the main thing, isn't it? Well, look, thanks very much for your time today and coming in to talk to us on this contentious industry of wool, and it'll be interesting to see how the co-op develops. I should point out that Stuart Chapman, CEO of WPI's competition, Elders, was also asked to come to the program, but prior commitments meant that he couldn't make it this time. Ian Abercrombie of Wool Partners International there. Well, that's our show for this week, but remember, you can catch up with Sector Report on our website. See you next time.